Welcome, Realtors. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Owen Tyler, and I'm excited to have with us Senator Tim Scott. We're honored to have Senator Scott with us and thank him for his leadership while he's been in DC dealing with this coronavirus pandemic. Senator Scott has been a key leader in the recent passage of the Corona Aid, Relief, Economy, Security, CARES, otherwise known as the CARES Act, the most significant relief package in American history, designed to help businesses and the economy during this time of crisis. Senator Scott, thank you for being here.
Absolutely. Thank you very much for the opportunity, Owen, to have a conversation with everyone. It's certainly good to be home in South Carolina. I hope everyone is doing fantastic. I know that we are living in unprecedented times of uncertainty, but I will tell you that the best is yet to come. Every single day I wake up realizing that we are blessed to live in the greatest country on earth. We are blessed to be as healthy as we are. We are blessed to have our families nearby. I think we're blessed to have our families nearby. Overall, it should be a blessing to have our families nearby. I'm trying to help myself and others remember the positive things that are happening right now. I'm seeing a lot of silver linings in the midst of this crisis. But let me just hop into the CARES Act, and then I'm happy to answer any questions that anyone has. The CARES Act it's up and running. We're having a lot of folks, a lot of uptick in the Small Business Administration's PPP program. About $50 billion so far has been loaned out. There are 178,000 businesses have taken advantage of that. So that's a positive. There are a lot of kinks in the system, to put it kindly, that we've been working with the SBA to get rid of those kinks. We've had a lot of success eliminating the roadblocks and hurdles, but there's a lot more to do. I have a call today with the administrator of SBA, so welcome your comments and certainly your thoughts on how to improve the program. There's no question, as we've seen over the last couple of days, I've spoken to the administration, many others have as well. There will be, in my opinion, probably an enhancement or an extension of the $350 billion timeline, as well as the amount of dollars in that area, specifically designed to help small businesses stay afloat. On the those who make less than $75,000, the $1,200 stability check coming in the mail should happen if you have direct deposit within the next 3 to 4 weeks. If you do not use direct deposit to get your tax return or to pay your taxes, then you'll want to sign up. The IRS should have a portal for you to sign up, because ultimately, if you don't do that, then the check comes in late July or August, as opposed to getting the check in the next few weeks. On the unemployment side, for the first time, folks who are self-employed, 1099, working for themselves, which is redundant, all have the ability to access the unemployment system in South Carolina using the maximum benefit of $326 on a weekly basis, and enhanced by the federal government's 16-week benefit of $600 per week. That has kicked off. The $600 per week payment is probably lagging behind a week or two, but anyone who qualified for it on April 1st will receive that $600 on a weekly basis going forward. Lots to talk about within the legislation, but as opposed to me just continuing to go through the 13.3 program, I know you may have some questions as well. We had a good conversation with the FDIC, Yellen yesterday, Yellifer, as well as the Joe Quarles, Mr. Quarles, the Vice Chairman of the Fed, as well as Joseph over there at the OCC. So happy to answer some questions.
Wonderful. Thank you, Senator Scott. Earlier this week, we sent out an email and allowed our members to ask some questions. And so we've consolidated all of those in. A lot of similar questions coming from the realtor community, concerned about real estate in the state of South Carolina, concerned about the economy, and concerned about the coronavirus. And so I'm just going to kind of jump right into it. I know you're busy, and we just really appreciate you taking the time to be here with us today.
Absolutely.
Generally, what do you see as the issue for Congress when everybody returns on April 20th? We hear a lot about, and you just touched about CARES 2.0. What are you thinking is going to come out? What's the plan to come out? And a big question a lot of our members had is, are you going to be returning on April the 20th?
Yeah, I will go back as soon as they call us back. There are a lot of folks who are hesitant to go back to Washington. I am not in that camp. I ultimately think that if we have to go back in order to pass a phase 4, that it's necessary for me to get on a plane and fly back. It's probably not my most comfortable flight I'll ever have in my lifetime, but it's a necessary flight that I look forward to if necessary in order to have either calling it phase 4 or CARES 2 implemented. There are some really hot topics that need to be debated, but I don't think we're going to go back on the 20th personally. I think we're going to kick it to towards the end of the month, but there is a chance that we will do some. I have a couple of, I'm a whip for the Senate, and we'll have a whip meeting later on today to really discuss how we whip the votes to figure out where everybody is, and if we have the ability to either do it by unanimous consent or voice vote, we may use that tool if there's enough agreement on what's in the package. That will be much easier to accomplish if, in fact, we're using the same parameters, only adding more money into the same coffer, so to speak, that's already in CARES 1. If that happens, it'll be easier for us not to go back and vote. But if we don't do that, if there's an expanded list of priorities, then we'll have to go back and probably tackle those in person. And I look forward to getting there and getting back home as soon as possible. That's my thought.
Yeah, I can't imagine getting on a plane within the next week. Realtors are currently supporting the remote notary bill, which is Senate Bill 3533, that's been introduced by your banking committee colleague, Senator Kramer from North Dakota. It's currently in Senator Graham's Judiciary Committee. This issue is going to allow remote notary is extremely important to continuity of real estate, not only in the South Carolina, but in other areas that are under a state order to stay in place. Do you see any potential issues regarding the remote notary in future legislation? Do you see it being something, or do you think it's something that we're just not going to get on board with as a country?
I think it's, frankly, I think it's the future, to be honest with you. As this economy is shifting faster towards technology than ever before, perhaps part of that silver lining I was talking about previously is the notion of remote everything. We're testing the flexibility, the ingenuity, the creativity, and the necessity of doing things from a remote perspective. So I do think you'll see more of an uptick in the conversation around the e-notary concept. I know that the legislation itself is relatively new. We see a lot of promise in the legislation. I think there's a chance that you'll see it move forward. Probably not immediately, but it may be embedded into a future package, whether it's phase 4 or one of the other stability efforts that we have coming into summer.
Wonderful. The CARES Act included some much needed mortgage forbearance. Though it did not include any assistance for mortgage servicers, many of which are saying they're thinly capitalized. We're seeing newspaper articles all over the country. We're seeing some lenders actually pull back on writing loans and holding off. Do you see any trends that cause concern for creditability moving forward? And kind of as a second part of this, do you expect to see an additional legislative push to ease any potential crunch in that space?
I do expect to see. We had a call yesterday, as I said, with the folks at the Fed and OCC and FDIC. One of the issues that was brought up was perhaps standing up through the 13.3 program a mortgage services facility. There's no question that there is a stranglehold on the market as it relates to being able to process a loan. I've spoken to some of my friends, so to speak, around the country who are processing mortgages, and they're all saying that the market is killing their businesses. Frankly, I had a call about 5 days ago with Cantor Fitzgerald, who we all know in the business. He had some suggestions and recommendations as well. Dara did, and there's no doubt that there is too many challenges in the market right now. And standing up through the 13.3, which I'm not sure if you're familiar with that or not, but the long story short is it would take some of the pressure off and allow for more loans to be processed quicker by bringing more liquidity into the system, as I understand it. And it's something that has gained steam, not only myself, but the Warner on one side, Rounds, Tillis are all having conversations in the same direction on this issue, and I've joined with them looking at ways to make sure that we are able to process loans at a very low interest rate. This should be a good time for frankly, for processing loans, not a tough time since interest rates are so low, but understanding the bottleneck and the stranglehold that has been created over the last really 5 weeks or so, 3 to 5 weeks, has been really interesting to watch, and hopefully there will be an answer coming very quickly. This is something that's top of the mind for both sides of the aisle, which I think is really a good thing.
We certainly appreciate your leadership on that. As you can imagine, the calls that our membership gets about that, not only from the buyers and the sellers, is just tremendous. And so any help you could provide is greatly appreciated. Switching course a little bit to the Small Business Association Payroll Protection Program. Many realtors have wanted to submit applications, but have been unable to find a bank that will actually take their applications. We're getting reports that banks are refusing applications unless the applicant already has a business account, and in some respects they had to have a business account back in February 13th as a cutoff for many banks. Banks are adding additional screening process measures that are not part of the CARES Act. Is there anything that we can do to address these changes?
Yeah, one of the reasons why I'm having the call with the SBA today is to address that very specific issue. It's quite interesting that a financial institution would have a harder time making a loan when 100% of the money of that loan is backed by the federal government. It is the, what's the best word for crazy? Okay, craziest thing I could ever think of, to be honest with you. I don't fully understand at all what the issues are there. I certainly understand that there are issues because I'm getting a lot of phone calls, but this should be the easiest streamlined process of getting a loan and getting a financial institution to participate, because the money is 100% federal backed. They actually, many of the financial institutions wanted to see a different interest rate environment so that there would be no cost to processing the loan. And so it's one of the reasons why Secretary Mnuchin, at least in my opinion, raised it from a 0.5 percentage point for the loan rate, if there was going to be a loan at the end, to 1%, so as to make sure that the banks and everyone, all the financial institutions, were made whole in the process. So this is no money off, as I like to say, no skin off their back at all, and the money is 100% federally backed. And then the SBA comes through very quickly, not months, but days or a week or so is the goal, and buys those loans off the balance sheet, so to speak, of the financial institution. So it's literally not even a year note or a 6-month note for the banks. It's a couple of weeks or a month at the most that they would be have that on their books. So I don't understand the challenges, but it is certainly the #1 thing on my list right now with the SBA administrators. I hope to have it, frankly, by late this afternoon. My call's at 2:30, I think, or 3 o'clock today. So I will hopefully have an answer. I pre-submitted some of the concerns I had to her so that she would be in a position to hopefully give me answers and not hear it for the first time.
That's wonderful. We appreciate it. The South Carolina Department of Employment and Workforce Housing, and we certainly know you're not over that department, before I ask the question, has not yet updated its website, and our members are unable to file at this time. What can we expect, and when can we expect them to actually receive federal funding under the Pandemic Unemployment Assistance provision in the CARES Act?
They signed the contract or the memorandum of understanding on March the 28th. The funds became eligible for paychecks, or for people unemployed, so to speak, should I say, for people unemployed on April the 1st, week ending April the 4th. So the quest is to make sure that they have the resources in their hands, so to speak. Now, essentially, what we do know for certain is that week ending April the 4th, anyone who was unemployed that week will, if they're eligible for the underlying benefit from South Carolina, they will receive the enhanced benefit, even if it has to be paid in arrears. by a week or so. So I would suggest that this is probably a 14-day issue, but you'll get the person who's unemployed on April the 1st or 2nd, whatever that week began with, will be eligible for the $600 per week benefit. The benefit runs through the end of July. So it's a 16-week benefit. April through the end of July would be the timeline. But every week that they're unemployed, they will receive the resources. We have been on the phone with Due today and this morning. We'll probably get back on the phone this afternoon because there is some confusion since they've already signed the contract to receive the resources. I'm not sure where the sticking point is, but there's certainly there are some challenges in the system, and I think partially driven by the fact that there are those eligible groups to include realtors who have never been eligible before. So there's systems being updated for that new tranche of eligible class of eligible individuals. I think it's harder to process than first blush seemed that it would be.
That is certainly understandable, given that independent contractors have not typically been eligible for unemployment. So that makes complete sense. Do you have a message for the South Carolinians that are out there that aren't taking social distancing seriously?
Start taking it seriously. The fact of the matter is that our apex, our peak is not really in April, it's in May. That tells you a couple things. Number one, the fact that we're seeing a flattening of the curve, so to speak, is that the definition of flattening the curve, however, isn't fewer cases, it's just a lower percentage increase over yesterday. That happened last day or so. That's good news, but the truth of the matter is that when you're talking about as many as 8,000 plus deaths in South Carolina, that is something we should all take seriously. And frankly, the answer to the question of how to save lives, it's not more money from the government, it's not more awareness from a hospital, it's not more conversations with your municipality, it's not the God bless the real estate associations that are all providing great information. None of that is the answer. The answer is you and me taking it seriously to social distance 6 feet, not 5, I say 6, to wear masks whenever appropriate, realizing that washing your hands for 20 seconds with warm water gives you a chance to practice the happy birthday song or sing the Pledge of Allegiance or get good at something. I don't know what it is, but find a way to entertain yourself. These protocols are not simply there to protect you, and though it will, it's also to protect the ones that you love, the ones you live next to, the ones that you take a walk around the park with these days. If we do what we are able to do, if we do what we are capable of doing, we will flatten the curve, we will save thousands of lives. But if we don't do the simple things that we know to do, it will be a part of our legacy that we did not accomplish the goal of flattening the curve and reducing the number of anticipated deaths from 100,000 to 240,000 down to a number that is so low that we are all thankful that while we lost some lives, and that was a tragedy, we saved so many more thousands of lives because we had the individual fortitude to do the right thing, and that is to follow the protocols even when you don't feel like it.
I think that's such a great message. And we have stressed as a realtor association to our membership in the South Carolina that while we may be classified as essential business, it is not business as usual. That these are difficult times, they're trying times, and not only do we need to be cognizant of our own safety, but that of our clients and our friends and our families, and it's too great to risk it. So thank you for saying that.
Absolutely.
We had some questions relating to credit scores.
Yes.
The assumption is that credit scores will be impacted due to layoffs and increased debt. Is there any discussion in Congress about freezing credit scores or any talk about what might be done to protect a future home buyer if you're laid off today and your credit score gets dinged or significantly dropped because you can't make a rent payment or you can't pay that power bill or you can't make those medical bills, and 5 years later or 2 years later you try to go buy your first time home, or and you can't because of your credit score. Is there anything on the horizon about a credit score freeze that would protect a lot of the nation?
Yeah, so there's a lot of conversation about that, and frankly, the CFPB has provided some guidance to credit scoring agencies to be more flexible than they have been in the past, and they don't necessarily have to report during the crisis the credit deficiencies that are happening and delinquencies that may be happening because of the COVID-19. So there is, in fact, a lot of flexibility being hardwired into the system. I will say that I very rarely have praise for the CFPB because they typically don't deserve a lot of praise, honestly. But this is one of the occasions where they have been forward leaning. They've leaned into this situation in advance and have provided some guidance to the credit scoring agencies that will, I think, alleviate some of the concerns that you just articulated.
It's always interesting. Credit scores always seem the great mystery of life. No one is really sure how they get there, and no one remembers not paying the bill or even getting the bill. So it's nice to hear that there's something in the works for that. And another question. Sorry.
And no one ever says, where did that bill come from that I had paid 7 years ago, 4 years ago? Comes down to that. Listen, that's an unfortunate challenge. But.
It is. A question we had over and over again, which is another great mystery of life, is why do credit card companies charge such high interest? And is there anything that Congress can do to protect the consumer in the light of this crisis and the debt that they're incurring while they're not working and earning a living, and in particular our members that are predominantly self-employed?
Yeah, I don't have a great answer for that, to be honest with you. My simple answer is, I don't know. That's probably not a good answer, so I'm gonna try to think of a better answer for you. I do know there's a lot of conversation out there about how to have our credit card companies, really the financial institutions in our country, to be more lenient during the COVID-19 crisis than they've ever been before, especially since the liquidity ratios for most of our major financial institutions have been strengthened because of 2008, the crisis. So what we don't want to do is we don't want to have a heavy-handed government coming in to reduce the interest rates, because that only will make it more difficult at the bottom of that food chain, or at the end of that food line, because ultimately when we tell folks there has to be a cap, that means that the rates have to go up for other people and other places. So we're careful not to try to fix something by causing more issues later down the line. But it's a great question, and there's really not a great answer.
We're kind of nearing our time and our end of our questions. Kind of a final question. Are you hearing in Washington from the experts how long this crisis will last, and what will happen to ease the fears and restore American confidence? And kind of a follow-up, I'm just going to add a little something to it.
Sure.
Do you think that this pandemic is going to culturally change our country? Americans typically have a short span of memory, and we tend to go back to doing the things that we do. I think 9/11 historically and culturally changed the way we travel. Do you think that this will change us?
I do think that we will be changed for the better. I do think that you go through a pandemic, and it's something that you've never had in your lifetime. What we hate as a people, especially as Americans, I think it's true just as human beings, we hate uncertainty. Uncertainty concerns us, it scares us, it makes us unsettled. That is something that we have to overcome. I think we're actually growing a little stronger as a nation. I think we're becoming a tighter knit community in many ways. I'm watching kids play with neighbors that they hadn't really gotten to know really well. So I'm seeing a lot of positive signs. Here's what I think. The hope is at the end of this month we'll see enough of a flattening of the curve. That's why your earlier question is so critical. A part of the answer to when we get back open for business, so to speak, as a nation, has to do with our accepting the personal responsibility of social distancing, so that we flatten the curve enough that people are able to go back to work. It also has to do, in my opinion, this may not be the most popular thing I say to my friends in the government, but if we're not careful, if we don't produce enough tests out there where people can have a test whenever they want to test, that's going to be a part of the equation, in my opinion. And then finally, I do think that as we head towards the heat in the South, heat and humidity are the enemies or the nemesis of this invisible war that we're fighting against this invisible enemy, the COVID-19. So we are moving into a season where we're going to have, I think, fewer cases over the come start May, mid-May through the end of August, September. It's going to be it's going to flatten by itself. That's a time of celebration, also a time of concern, because if we don't practice social distancing on the front end, we could have a strong revival, so to speak, of the COVID-19 in the fall. That would be problematic. I think we'll be back. We'll see activity in May. We'll see strong activity in June, and we'll see things normalizing, a new normal in July, in my opinion. That new normal will include the psychological scar tissue from the social distancing. You can imagine going into a restaurant, having your parents or your grandparents in their 70s or 80s going out to dinner, sitting there in a crowded restaurant. That feels different for me, thinking about that. So when that happens, we know that we're back at it 110%. Until you start seeing that happen throughout the country, you know that we're not quite there yet. So for me, the stake in the ground has less to do with what the doctors say. It has to do with the overcoming the psychological scar tissue, so to speak, of having been quarantined and having had to stay so far apart for so long. As we overcome that, I think you'll see us, our economy is going to have a V-shaped recovery in the fourth quarter and a decent recovery in the third quarter, in my opinion.
Wonderful. And now I'm going to put you on the spot. You have a you have a new book coming out, Opportunity Knocks. Can you give us a little preview about the book? Can we pre-order the book? What's the deal with the book?
Thank you very much. You can only pre-order 1,000 each person at a time. So the book Opportunity Knocks really is a story of hope. It's how to be hopeful in the midst of challenging and uncertain times. Unfortunately for me, my life has been tragedy, triumph, problem, promise, obstacle, opportunity. It's not been a smooth ride for me at all, but it's been the blessing of the good Lord to be in a position where in the midst of all the challenges, I have great confidence, having the ability to look back at the problems that I faced and seeing the promise come out of those problems. I'm completely encouraged that this situation that we're in, COVID-19, will be the same, and Opportunity Knocks will give you a glimpse into why I'm so optimistic about where we are, even if it's tough, because the good days are on its way. Opportunity Knocks gives you both parts of that story. Hope is alive.
Senator, this has been a really great 30 minutes with you, and we just can't thank you enough. Any final thoughts that you might want to share for our realtor members?
Yeah, thank you so much. Hey, thank you all for inviting me on. I hope that you guys and gals allow me to do this again in the upcoming weeks as we make progress on expanding the Triple-P program as we deal with South Carolina due and the unemployment situation. I look forward to being a place where you can come for more information. But more than that, let me say this. I know a lot of the realtors around the low country and frankly around the state. You all are the most professional, gifted, optimistic people I know. Please let your optimism be the thing that infects people. We need literally to be infected by the spirit of optimism and a strong sense of hope and expectancy that things are going to get better and we are part of the solution. You all have made a difference in the lives of hundreds of thousands of people who've purchased homes. You have been great neighbors and friends. You've been fantastic members of families. Please do that aggressively with great enthusiasm, because every time I'm on a call, it's saved with you all and a few other groups. There is almost a spirit of dread, an apprehension and anxiousness. I don't hear that from you all. You're concerned, you're clear, but you are also moving things forward in the midst of this challenging time. Please continue to be who you are, the light on the top of the hill. God bless you all.
Thank you, Senator Scott. Before I let you go, if you will please extend a warm thank you to your staff. They are always so helpful, not only to our NAR leadership, our South Carolina Realtor leadership, Michael Sally, a realtor here in Charleston who serves as your federal political coordinator for the Realtor Association. He never goes without a phone call. Your staff reaches out, and that is just above all just so important to us to make sure that we're able to share with you what's happening back home and in the community as it relates to your constituents. I want to really call out someone special on your staff, Emily Lavery. She has been very helpful in assisting NAR team with a push for the Treasury regarding extending the 1031 deadlines. It's a very important issue for our commercial realtors. It's a very important issue in South Carolina with all the commercial development that we have here. And for you, you've always been our realtor champion. You're always willing to listen to us, and you're one of the few members of Congress that truly understands our industry, and we just appreciate it so much. So from South Carolina Realtors, thank you. Have a wonderful afternoon. Stay safe and well, and all the best to your family.
Thank you so much. Very kind comments. I will pass those on to Emily. God bless you guys. The Easter week. Make it a good one and enjoy the rest of your day. Bless you.
Wonderful. Thank you. And for everyone watching, we will have a recording of this, and that will be out in the next 24 hours. Again, everyone be safe and practice social distancing. Thank you, Senator Scott.
Yes, sir. Bye-bye.